All right, I'm going to ask you all to stand up just to stretch. As I do that, I'm going to ask our next speaker to make his way here. Javier is a great servant of our community. He's got an amazing testimony, a great story. I'm going to just, again, read his biography, but he's the founder and CEO of Bridge of Grace Compassion Ministries. He's originally from Mexico. He arrived in Fort Wayne in 2007, and together with his wife, they founded Many Nation Church, a multi-ethnic congregation in Mount Vernon Park neighborhood. In 2012, Javier established Bridge of Grace Compassionate Ministries, a faith-based community developed organization dedicated to building thriving and sustainable neighborhoods in Southeast Fort Wayne. Javier holds a Master of Ministry and Leadership from Olivet Nazarene University, and he has served as an adjunct professor of Community Development and Urban Ministries at Indian Wesleyan University. He's done a lot of amazing things in his neighborhood. In 2019, he was named Citizen of the Year by the Journal Gazette, and he has, with his wife Annette, 3 sons and 1 daughter. Please join me in welcoming Javier to share all about the impact of
Jesus told me that I don't have that much time. Thank you, Barry. No, it was great. It was great. It was amazing.
That was totally unexpected.
So here's the boring part, right? This is my story. I'm going to share my story. It started in 1979. A doctor told this woman that she should consider abortion. This was her 6th child. She was living under poverty, and she was 39 years old. So, just because she was in poverty, at that time, in the 70s, 80s, they actually considered that 39 years old was old for having a baby. But thankfully, she decided to have this baby. And so I'm thankful for my mother who made a decision to have me, because if not, I wouldn't be here. And so I thank God for that. What is interesting is that, I was a surprise. I was a surprise for my mother. I'm pretty sure she didn't plan me. My brother, who's before me, is 8 years older than me. So I'm pretty sure she thought she was done. But she wasn't. The interesting part is that we have 4 kids too, and we also had a surprise. We couldn't have kids. My wife and I couldn't have kids for 7 years after we got married, and we tried, and we couldn't. We went to a doctor, and this doctor couldn't help us, so we went to another doctor, and this doctor figured out. I said, yeah, you have fertility treatment. And so for every child we had to have fertility treatment. My oldest, he was, I tell him that he was cooking for 7 years, so he's like, well done, kid. And after that, just the gates open. So we had another one and another one. But every time we were planning to have a kid, we would go the fertility treatment. But then the 4th didn't happen. it was a miracle God provided, and we're so happy. So every time I see my child, my 4th child, I lift him up and I say, man, God really has a plan for you. Because I didn't plan you. So we're so thankful. My mom had me, and I'm thankful for that. But at the age of 1, my father he was an alcoholic, and so when I turned 1 year old, he left the house. He went to go with another woman, and so living in poverty, living in the second most violent neighborhood in Mexico, here in this state of Morelos, and so I'm living there, the biggest problem in our neighborhood was the gangs, right? There was gangs everywhere, and if you didn't join the gang, you had no protection. So you either join or you don't join, and you have no protection. And so at the age of 12, naturally, my oldest brother, he was one of the members of the gang, one of the leaders actually. He was one of those who would go in prison in and out all the time. And so at the age of 12, basically just joined the gang, right? It kind of embraced me. And at the age of 12, I was doing things, and I was seeing things that a 12-year-old should never see, right? I'm doing things, delivering packages here and there. Actually, the first time I delivered a package that they gave me, I took it, and I didn't know what I was taking. And then I brought something back and I didn't know what I was doing. And then later, like a month later, I figured it out. Oh, wait, I know what I'm doing now. But, I saw things that I shouldn't be doing. Like I said, I saw things I shouldn't be seeing. A 12-year-old shouldn't be seeing. And between 12 and 17 was probably the worst time of my life, right? Involved in this illicit activity that the game was doing. I saw things, I started to do drugs, all of it. My mother was only 56 when she got sick. She had a hernia. And you think a hernia is not a big deal, but she got surgery and she got complications. And she ended up passing away. So she was only 56 when she passed away. So I'm 17 now. Really rough time, right? And I had a brother who became a believer. He came to Christ when he was in Mexico. And after he came to Christ, he moved to the U.S., got out of that environment. That's really the only way that you can get out of drugs and all the stuff that was going on. So he got out. He came back for the funeral. And when he came back to the funeral, he was, he pulled me aside and he said, I know what you're doing. My mom told me what you're doing, and you really need to get out. You really need to stop doing what you're doing. You're gonna get killed. You're gonna kill someone. You're gonna end up in prison. And it was true. And so, but God was already doing something in my life. I know that He was praying for me. I know that people were praying for me. And actually, He said, "Do you want to get out?" I said, "Yes." So I told him I want to get out. So 3 months later, I found myself here in the U.S., in the state of Arkansas, of all places. Here you have a lot of corns. In the state of Arkansas, where we were, is where Tyson foods are. So there are a lot of chicken. So it smells like chicken everywhere. But that's when I arrived, and I remember that. When I arrived, my brother had his wife and a son. He said, "You're gonna live here. You can live here with me." He said, "And here are the rules." Right? I came from these, remember how I was living. He said, "Here are the rules, and you don't have to go to church, but we go to church on Sundays, and you're welcome to come." I didn't go for the first 2 weeks, but the third week, when I arrived, I was very depressed. Really having a hard time moving. I didn't want to be there. And he told me, he said, there's a concert. Christians are very liars. Christians are liars. I'm a Christian. He said, "There's this concert. You want to go? It's good music." And it wasn't a concert. It was a Billy Graham crusade. It wasn't Billy Graham. There was music, yes, at the beginning. And then after that, it was this evangelist who came. And everything was in Spanish. It was actually in Spanish. I didn't speak English at that time. And it was this guy who, after the music, he comes up, he's on the stage. And I remember very well. I never forget that time, right? There was about 3,000 people probably in that place. But this guy comes up and he starts talking. And he's from Honduras, tattoos all over his body. And he starts to share his story, his testimony. Very similar to mine, right? Everything that he went through, single mother, gang activity, drugs, and everything. And he just shared how God redeemed his life and how He changed his life. And man, when he was sharing it, just started to feel like God was just speaking to me directly. But at the end, he made an invitation. And he made an invitation saying, if you want to receive God, you want to ask God for help, He's here to help you. And so I didn't go to church. I didn't grow up in church. I didn't care for God or anything. But I remember that day, I knew I needed help. And I remember going down and praying and asking God for help. And then God did something in that time. I remember crying and crying for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Didn't know what happened, but I knew something happened and changed. So it was a miracle. I didn't know. I didn't need any rehab or anything like that. It was just a miracle that God did in my life. And I was so thankful. So I started going to church, and then after a year, at the age of 18, went to another youth conference. I remember in Austin, Texas. Another evangelist comes up, starts speaking, and then this guy talks about how God can use your life. And God can actually redeem your past and use it for good for others. And so he made an invitation at the end too, and he said, do you feel God calling you in your life right now? And I remember, yes, this is for me. I know that God is calling me in my life. So at the age of 18, I knew God was calling me to do something. I didn't know what. but I knew he was calling me to do something. So I arrived, fast forward, right? Got married, actually met my wife in church, both went to church to seminary, graduated, came to Fort Wayne back in 2007, of all places. Fort Wayne, why no San Diego, why no Florida, no, the cold place, I think, right? And I arrived here, we've been here, like you saw, in 2007, we arrived to Southeast Fort Wayne. There was a building there, out of our church, our denomination. We were sitting empty for about 2 years before we arrived. And yeah, they gave us a tour of Southeast Fort Wayne. And they told us this is the area that's underserved, and we can tell by just driving around. And I thought, what people call the bad side of town. And we knew we were going to move there, but we thought we knew. This is back in 2008, where in our neighborhood was a lot of drug houses, a lot of crime, a lot of things, a lot of activity. And so the thing that I get to hear or I get to see about my past, and that was something that Barry was sharing about purpose, is because a lot of times I ask myself, why did God allow for me to go through that time between 12 and 17? It was really rough for me. And sometimes I can ask, God, why did you allow me to go through those things? Why did you allow me to go to have a single mother who worked so hard, and it was hard for me, to be on the streets all the time? But when I arrived here to Fort Wayne, I moved into that neighborhood in Southeast Fort Wayne, and I started to get to know the kids in our neighborhood. I started to get to know the youth, and I started to see how many single mothers live in Southeast Fort Wayne. I started to realize why. You know why? Because God can use your past and redeem your past to use you today, no matter what happened. And so now I can relate to these kids, I can relate to this youth that suffer and go through the same things that I went through, the same pressures that they experience. And these mothers who struggle because they're single, because they have to work 2 jobs, because they have 4 kids or 5 kids, and it's hard for them. I can relate to them too, right? I can see my mother too that had the same experience. And so again, I guess the thing that I like to say here is that it's so important that how your past can actually shape your future. And God can redeem, can use that, whatever it is that happened in your life. One of my favorite quotes, I think, is from Mark Twain. He said the 2 most important days in your life is the day you were born and the day you find out why. And it's so true. It's so true. The day you find out why you were born, your purpose, the reason why you exist. Man, it's amazing. So that's my testimony. I want to share one story about one of the things we want to do, we like to do, and I love what Barry shared, because our ministry is based on this. This is what we do, right? We live in that community. We live where a lot of people live in poverty, and it's really poverty. A lot of times, what you find is people who are hopeless. And what hopeless means, what it means or what it looks like in our community is a hopeless person is somebody who has lost confidence, right? They have lost confidence in themselves. They have lost confidence that something can be different, and something can be better. They also, they've been let down a lot of times. People in our community have been let down, and they have been promised things, and they've been let down. So it's hard for them to trust. And so that's a hopelessness look in our community. And so when we are there, when we live there, so we have 6 of our staff move in that neighborhood. We live there, we practice the incarnation of ministry to live in the community where we serve. And one of the things we do is we try to make sure that we make sure that people understand the significance that they have. And so the people in our neighborhood for us, it's so important that they know how special they are, how amazing they are. And so I want to share just the one story. One of them, her name is Tammy. And Tammy, basically, she lived just 2 streets down from our church. And we also, one of the things we did in our community to organize, to change our community, to get people involved and engaged in the solutions of the problems in our neighborhood, is we established a neighborhood association. I ended up becoming the president of the neighborhood association. Nobody wanted to be the leader. But now, so when that happened, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that people in the community actually are the ones who are leading. And so we established this thing called block captains. We wanted to have block captains of every block of our neighborhood. And so Tammy started to come to our neighborhood association meetings. I remember the first time when I saw her. No smile, very quiet. It looks like she didn't want to be there, really. But she went. She went to the meeting. And so I never forget her face, because after that, she started coming. It was 2 or 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 months after the meeting. And then she started to kind of open up, right? Because she started to think, okay, I want to just check it out first. I don't trust. I want to see really if something is happening here and if it's really legit, right? So after 3 months, now you still smile. You can see that now she's speaking about her concerns, of her ideas. And so after 3 or 4 months, I actually asked her, I said, would you want to be the block captain? We need one in your street. And she couldn't believe it. She said, I don't know that I can. But I said, no, you can do it. And so she actually accepted, and it was really cool. We had a block party, and we asked for volunteers, and she shows up, right? And she's setting up tables, setting up chairs, and now you can see a smile. And that's what hope looks like in our neighborhood. It's a smile. It starts with just a smile, knowing that she can be part of something, do something about the problems in the neighborhood. Well, after a year, going by, we actually offered her like jobs, during the summer for a summer camp, so she was able to cook for our kids in our summer camps. After 2 years, I actually told her, I said, Tammy, you live in the neighborhood. We have this nonprofit called Bridge of Grace. And one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure, always that the people in our community have the lead and they actually voicing the concerns, but also bring the ideas and solutions. So we would like you to be part of the board of Bridge of Grace. And she was like, started crying after I asked her, because she said, I can't do that. Like, why me, right? I said, why you? Because you are the expert in the neighborhood. Right? You are the best, you are the expert for the solutions of this community. This community will become better because of you. And so we want you and we need you. So I didn't let her say no. And so she's been now on our board for 3 years. And, that's part of the reason why we exist, is to be able to make sure that the people who live there drive the change and the solutions that are coming. So I wanted to share that, because you find yourself in your household, you also can actually believe in somebody and just make sure you kind of have this high expectation for their life and bring that, unleash that potential that they have in their lives. So not just in your household, but also in your workplace, right? You probably have businesses. You probably have a person that works under you or other people. The only way you're going to really make it the best is by you actually empowering the people who work with you, who work under you. So I'll let you know, wait a minute. So I also needed to show you, because I'm Javier.
Is it appropriate?
I'm Javier, but I'm also Batman. So I